Hey guys, welcome back to RBR. I'm your host Raz. Today is a very special day. The one journalist that we have cited more than any other on the channel, be it on YouTube with car reviews or on Instagram, has been Mr. Chris Harris. He has been fundamental in forming my view and likes on cars since a young age, and I know it's the same for a lot of you guys. And whenever we've cited him, it's either been in wonder of something that he's done on screen or in agreement of something that he's written. Though last week, I disagreed with something on Instagram, although I did agree with a few points. But it turns out, like you guys, Chris actually sometimes views my content, which is mind-blowing for me. So today I have the absolute honour to say the words I never ever thought I would say, and that is, Mr. Chris Harris, welcome to RBR.
Honour, pleasure.
Can we fist bump? Is that doable?
We can, because I'm COVID-free. I get tested twice a week because of the Dear Corporation. Lovely to meet you. Think you've done fantastic work.
Oh, thank you.
And like
so
I
much.
said in our message exchange, because I do answer messages.
Yeah.
There's no point in lobbing snowballs at each other in the public forum. You might as well meet up and have a chinwag about the very different worlds in which we've grown up in.
Absolutely. I mean, we're kind of generations apart. Although, not to make this weird, but to start off with, I've actually dreamed about this many times. And the reason...
Yeah,
Jamie's
I might actually go.
He's going to go. You got a fast enough car to go.
Yeah.
This is kind of like discussing boxing with Muhammad Ali or cricket with Wasim Akram. You know, this is that level for me. And I don't think Chris quite appreciates that.
Well, I obviously don't see it that way at all, but look, I appreciate it. But I've been doing it a while, and I watch what your generation is doing with a mixture of wonder, distress, envy, and every other emotion. It just does this for me. I don't know. Sometimes I just think it's amazing. Other times I go, "What are they up to?" But I wanted to come here because I wanted to chat about those things we were talking about. This new Black Series that was a great point of debate. But other stuff as well. I want to understand what your perspective is on what my generation does and the way we hold ourselves. And I want to be able to present what I think to you.
Agree. And I've been thinking about this for years, because being in the thick of it, you see what you guys do, and I get a broad understanding of what my colleagues in the influencer world, I hate that word, by the way, because it's too far reaching, but we'll get into that. So it'd be nice to impart to you kind of how I see the two worlds working as well, so that'd be great. Just to introduce R2 here, he's here because it's nice to give our viewers a few holograms and things that we are talking about. So jump straight into it, Chris. GT Black Series. You're not excited?
I like model stratification within it's an awful phrase, within a range of cars, all right? I like things to make sense. When something doesn't make sense, I start to scrutinise it, and then I start to look at where it sits and the reasons why it may have been built. And I think the Black Series starts to trip up when I look at that, because I think the AMG GT has been a headache for Mercedes. I think it hasn't quite sold the way I wanted it to, but I loved it from the start.
Yeah.
Because for me, it was a modern 928. It had a sense of being more muscle car than sports car.
Yeah.
And I really liked that, because that meant it wasn't a 911. Anyhow, then they brought out the GTR. That was a real surprise, because they went to town on that in a way I didn't expect them to. I mean, they basically set themselves the benchmark, which was the GT3.
Yeah.
I think they did a great job. They produced a car that was as fast, if not faster than the GT3, but easier to drive. It had
its own character versus GT3. It wasn't trying to do that.
No.
But it had the AMG flavour mixed with a car that could actually drive really well.
Yeah, and I thought I thought that was a great car. Then this GTR Pro comes out, and you start to think, right, this is getting a bit smelly.
See, I had one of these, and I really struggled with it, so I'd love to hear what you have to say.
I think if you're really, really into the subject, I can see it. I can see why you might do it, but the reality is it was a bunch of race parts really to go on the car. And if you race, and I've raced for a long time, race parts are expensive. You know, at a race weekend, if you bend a splitter, they come out with a bill for 10 grand. You go, what? How? And so they've applied race car parts prices to a road car, which in itself is quite tricky. But people did sign up to it, although I don't think the take-up was as great as, let's say, GT3 to GT3 RS.
No.
So you've got these cars now. GTR Pro is effectively a GT3 car for the road.
Yeah.
No, it is. I know that in AMG it's more complicated because the race car has to use a normally aspirated engine.
Yeah.
But what you've got is, you've got something that sits at the top of the model range. It's turbocharged, it's got a load of downforce, it's got everything. So then they announced this new car. The price, I think, is sticky.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money for a car that's still based on a shape that you can buy for less than half the money.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And then I start to look at the spec of it. Flat plane engine, I mean, that's really interesting mechanically. Of course, we all know that when you make a flat plane crank engine, they can sound quite flat.
Yes, a bit more four-cylindery.
Yeah. So that's a bit of a problem because it maybe you're losing some of the appeal. And then I start to look at what you're going to do with the car. Okay, so its USP is that it's got a much faster lap time.
Yeah.
I mean, on the road, it's not going to be any better, I wouldn't have thought. I haven't driven it, but I just looked at it and thought...
It's going to be worse off than the GTR.
I can't say that until I've driven it, but I suspect it is. So what we've got is a car that's going to go faster on track. Do people that buy these cars really use them on track like that? No, they don't.
Well, that was my problem with the Pro, because the GTR was a really good daily car. It still had AMG's adaptive suspension, so you could chuck it into comfort if you wanted to. The Pro didn't have that. And I didn't see any benefit on the road. If anything, it was becoming a more cumbersome drive daily.
Yeah.
So I hardly did that many miles in it, forgetting COVID for a second, because I would have found an excuse to go out and drive.
Yeah.
But I just found myself thinking I missed my GTR.
Yeah.
And the reason for that was, A, the sound, because obviously the Pro had OPF, etc., which is fine, you can get an exhaust system, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
But the changes that they put in that car weren't for your average AMG user. They were for someone who was absolutely going to track the car every weekend, which for 99% of us is not the selling point of the GT series.
No.
So I think that was a bit of a misfire from them. With the Black Series, and I did this calculation within my GT Black
You've
video.
ordered one, haven't you?
I have.
Sorry, at this point, I've got a broken nose. All right, I've not basically just been.
Yeah, he's not VF.
I have not got COVID. I have a young puppy dog that headbutted me, and it's cracked the inside of my nose. So I'm struggling a bit. I apologise.
So I did this calculation in my GT Black video that the incremental power increase from a GTS to GTR was essentially the same power increase you got from SLS to SLS Black.
Yeah.
So essentially the GTR was the Black Series of our generation.
Yeah.
What Merc have done is make almost a Black Series Plus. Now the question is is there room in the world for that type of car? Because I really struggle with these 700 plus horsepower ideas.
There's room for anything. And I'm not such an old curmudgeon that I don't want crazy batshit cars out there. I do, because that's what makes the world interesting. But there comes a point you've got to take a step back and go, what is this? Okay, I draw a line on me making judgments about the way cars look. So it's all subjective. Anyone can like something. They really can. They can justify it. But for me, the Black Series doesn't look like a factory product. Okay. There's something about AMGs. AMG have a look, particularly that sort of Moors era of car, has a particular look to it.
It does.
It looks clean. It looks OEM. It's a little bit like a German guy wearing a suit with a slightly funky coloured pair of shoes. You know, it's deliberately a little bit naughty, but it's reserved, it's Teutonic.
Yeah.
And I like that. This thing has come out of nowhere. It looks fully Mansory to me. It's just OTT. So when I saw it, I hate to say it, even though I shouldn't pass judgment on something as subjective as styling, I went, doesn't even look OEM. It looks like Mansory's done the bloody thing, okay?
But I thought it really matched the GT3 product, in a big way, and some of the basic lines from the SLS Black. Obviously, this is all...
Yeah, no, absolutely. The SLS Black, for me, isn't as good looking as the... I thought the SLS Black was a bit wrong in the looks department compared to the SLS.
I agree, actually.
I thought it just looked a bit body kittish.
I've always preferred the standard SLS.
Yeah, so that's all personal. I think where they're struggling is this. There is only one other sort of model lineup that rivals this GTR thing, and that is the Porsche GT3 lineup. Now, the beauty they've got is that the GT3 is normally aspirated.
Yeah.
So they've got room to whack a turbo on it and give us the GT2 RS. It's a totally different flavour of car. This it's not a very different flavour. It's just the same recipe, wound up a bit with a bit more chili thrown in.
Yeah.
Okay, and I get that, but then it just looks cynical. It just looked like they were sitting there and thought, well, we've got a load of customers that will buy these bloody things.
And we need to recoup a bit of money.
And that's car companies are here to make money, so I get it. But I suppose I just looked at it and thought, 300 and something grand, are you having a laugh?
Well, I really struggled. To give you the customer point of view, I looked at the price and I had this option in mind. I thought, right, Raz, you can either get a normal SLS and a GTR, probably circa 100 each on the market today. Maybe SLS is 150. And you'll be left with 100 and something grand change, and you don't need the Black Series. Or go for the Black Series, maybe it's amazing and you just keep it for life. So I was struggling between these two problems, and my thing with the Black is I really think it's the last of an era. So unlike McLaren, who'll do 765 and then 820S and then 890 LT and all this, and we know Porsche will continue doing GT product because they're great at it, I don't think AMG are going to continue doing rear-wheel drive pure combustion engine sports cars anymore.
Yeah, okay. That's valid.
I think they're going towards V8 hybrids. 4MATIC is going to be the world for them going forward. So from a customer perspective, I'm thinking I'm not going to have a rear-wheel drive AMG sports car again. So does it make sense for me to get the last one? And that's kind of...
And they say it's going to be not built in massive numbers, but it's not limited edition, is it? It's not.
It's not. So worldwide, it's not. The UK does have a limit. So our little bubble might be slightly protected. I'd be lying if I said I'm not absolutely terrified by the idea, because I can barely afford it after selling many things. But it could go the other way.
This is awful sitting here basically ripping into the car that someone saved up to. And I feel awful doing it.
No, but it's valid, because what you're talking about is what's going through my head as a customer as well, so we can't ignore it.
I sort of, when I buy a car, I first of all think, how am I going to use it? Like that old snotter there's my daily, right? And it's done...
The only person in the world who could call GT3 Touring is
It's done 53,000 kilometres now, and it'll do 200,000 kilometres, that car, and then I'll either put a new engine in it or it'll go and sit in the shed. And when I bought it, I thought, I'm going to use it for this. It's a great road car. I'll never take it on track because it's not that for me. And it's got room in the back to throw my stuff in. I can basically live in it. It's got a good radio, and because it's a Porsche, it's good on long distance because the engine's in the back and I don't get that engine noise through the scuttle. All the usual 911 things. I had a place for it. The Black Series, I looked at the thing when I heard it was being released, because I've had a Black Series and I loved it.
You had the CLK,
I had a CLK,
right? Yeah.
And I'll come to that in a minute. And I thought, actually, maybe this is a car that I could look at. And I hate to say it, on price alone, I was out.
Yeah.
Because I just don't think a car at that money shouldn't be a standalone special model. I think, you know, I'd be looking for that. For that, I'd want something that was genuinely not
limited,
based on a normal sports car. But then I just thought, 700 horsepower is unusable on the road.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that's too fast for the road.
Yeah.
I don't use all of that. Of course I don't. I'd be banged up.
Yeah.
I said 700, what are we doing?
Yeah, I said that about the GT2 RS when our friend at Porsche, Rob, very kindly lent it to us, and it was so unhappy on normal roads and motorways, but as soon as we took it to long cross, it was like the car had woken up. And it was a different experience altogether, and I'm very fearful of that.
A lot of these modern cars just don't operate at low speed. They don't give you anything.
No.
They just basically wobble along, and they don't reveal anything, which makes you wonder why other people buy them. And that's another subject. But I just didn't see where it fitted, this Black Series thing. And I look back to my CLK Black Series, which I bought. I love that thing. Yeah. And I think what I loved about it was a very usable road car. Yeah. Really usable. And it had a particular personality to it, which was clever. And I think its lack of wings and spoilers really appealed to me. It just had a stance on the road that if you knew, you knew. Yeah. And if you didn't know, it didn't bother you. And the Black Series, this new Black Series, is completely the opposite. It's just basically, it's walking around going, I'm here! Yeah. Now, you're young and you'll get away with it, it's fine. Also, I will add one thing. I suspect if you order it in a much darker colour, it's not going to be, because all the launch colours were these oranges.
The orange and
it looked really full on to me. But I think...
So I figured, I've been thinking about this, and I had no intention of actually talking about this today, but since you brought it up, I was going to go for this orange.
Okay.
And I've seen the press photos, I've seen the footage, etc. And I'm just feeling maybe a Magno matte black is something that's going to work a little bit better on that car.
Yeah, I just think there's a lot going on with the bits they've added on, the grills, the vents, the flicks. And I don't know about you, another problem I have with cars that try and look like race cars, and maybe Porsche's got around this with the new GT3 RS, because I don't know about you, but the spy shots of the rear wing are absolutely absurd.
We can show that here, actually, and you can see it's kind of like a double barrel.
Well, it's also massive, and how they get around the pedestrian issues with these wings. But these cars never have a big enough rear wing to make them look like the race car. Because you go to a race weekend, you see a GT3 car.
And they are like...
And it's a proper wing. And then you see the road version parked in the car park and you go...
Looks like the diesel variant,
well, it's just a bit kind of pee-wee. It's like standing in the urinal and going, ooh. You know, it's just a bit embarrassing.
Yeah. Well, so, the only other thing for the Black Series that I will say, and this is a larger topic that we're going to go straight into after this, is taken into context versus everything else that AMG is doing at the moment. To me, it almost seems like the one thing that they are doing right, despite being illogical. So, and I say that when I recently reviewed a GLA 35, and it's a car that I have no idea why it exists, and I said this in the video. It's such a small niche within a niche within a niche. It drives nothing like an AMG. Apart from the grille, it looks nothing like an AMG. There's nothing about it that makes it stand out as a product from a Falterbach. And this is where their focus is really going towards.
Yeah.
There's an SUV campaign out there at the moment, which is beautifully shot, but it's all SUVs. And I don't, apart from G-Wagon and the odd GLE, I don't really liken AMG to fast SUVs. But this is the direction that they seem to be going in with everything. I don't know if you know this, but this is a rumor I heard down the grapevine that there was going to be a C63R.
Yeah.
So like not a Black Series as such, but a slightly more exciting one. And development was going ahead on it, titanium exhaust, all the bits and bobs. And it was cancelled because of Daimler budget cuts and other bits and pieces. But on the other side, they're making, frankly, all this shit that nobody really likens to the brand.
If you're a bean counter and you sit there at AMG and you're a financial planner, you can make a case for it. Because you can sell, there'll be so many little markets in the world that will take, an emerging market that will take an AMG CLA 35 because they can just about afford it or they can get it on the finance plan, whereas the bigger stuff they can't. So suddenly the volumes just pick up around the world, and actually they'll sell 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 as it works. There's a business case for it. But if you're trying to sell 1,500, 2,000 C63Rs to very specific markets, America, Australia, UK, Germany, there's not many outside of that, frankly, that buy those cars.
Yeah.
I can see it. And let's face it, the performance arms of all of these car makers are under huge pressure.
Yeah.
Because frankly, you could say they've been written out of history already.
Yeah.
We know they're obsolete. It's sad to say it. I, like you, I'm so passionate about Audi RS, about BMW M, AMG. I love them all. I don't have a particular proclivity for any of them. So you could argue that the performance arms of all these car companies are slightly obsolete already. They've either got to...
It's like a ticking time bomb.
It is. They've got let's say 10 years left to mildly hybridise or to fully hybridise or to somehow be shunted into being the electric performance sexy arm of the car company, which none of us really wants to happen.
No.
You know, the idea of BMW M just making electric cars because they think that lovely logo will sell more is terrible for me. It's just a sort of desecration of history.
I mean, we're both car nuts. To me, that does nothing for me.
No.
Having an AMG grille on a completely hybrid GT four-door, for example, does absolutely
no,
nothing.
and we know that's coming. So, but we can't rage against that. It's a bit King Canute. The tide's coming in.
Yeah.
So the interesting argument is, what should AMG be doing? In which case, I do feel guilty sitting here whinging about the Black Series, because I should be going, well, we should just be thankful for this.
To finish off that Black Series topic, can we revisit it together at some point?
Yeah.
Let's say I get my car.
Yeah. Or we'll borrow, there'll be a press car or something we can borrow.
No, I want you to drive my car as a fan, because that would be great for me. You and me, GT Black Series, maybe you bring a GTR along, and we decide, is it what we hope it is? Because I hope it's a great car, because AMG needs that at the top, doesn't it?
It will be a great car. I think also...
to be great, it's the GTR was so brilliant, though. That's the problem.
That's the thing. I posted a picture of I found an old photo of a GTR going sideways.
I saw it on
the other day.
Instagram.
I put it up, just reminding me what a day I had in that car, and why would you need any more? There is a phrase that sticks in my mind, which is a car too far.
Yeah.
Every car maker's done it. Yeah. A car too far. It feels like a car too far to me, and I think it doesn't fit into my understanding of a setting there.
Yeah, like you said earlier, it needs to justify the way GT3 justifies itself versus 2RS. It needs to be a very, very different experience.
When Porsche puts the RS badge on a car, we have a very fixed expectation of what we're going to get.
Yeah.
And sometimes it surprises us, almost always in a good way. When someone says Black Series to me, I have a vision of a car that looks quite standard in silhouette, that has shoulders.
Yeah. Big arches.
That actually isn't about track time. It's not about lap times. It's about some gorgeous engineering. It's about presence. And I think this, when I saw the first pictures, I went, I was hoping for a sort of something like this, and instead we've got wings and flicks and bloody calm and everything.
I mean, that was what the GTR was, wasn't it?
I think the GT, I just hate to say it.
Yeah.
The more I look at the Black Series, and when I drop a little bomb like that to wind everyone up, and I do it to wind people up.
At least you're honest about it.
Yeah, but also I'm not. I mean it.
Yeah.
But I'm saying it because I think it starts interesting debates. We wouldn't be sitting here if I hadn't done it.
Of course, yeah. I'm eternally grateful that you said that.
It just didn't fit with what I expected the Black Series to be, which maybe that's the wrong way of approaching these things. But I went back and I kept looking at photos of those launch. Have I got this wrong? And am I being deliberately salty? I'd love to have been invited on the launch. The irony is I couldn't have gone because I'm flat out making a TV show at the moment.
What was the story behind that without delving too much?
I don't know, I just didn't get an invite. But I, you know, I'm old and less relevant, I presume. But I don't, either way, I just, you know, it's a good way to put it out there, isn't it? Maybe they'll invite, am I doing it to get invited next time? Of course I am. I'm playing, it's a game. The whole thing's a game. I'm playing the game. But what I won't stand is this. A45S, lot of personal attacks after that from one particular individual, and that stuff has to stop. That's, you know, we're in a business of reviewing cars. We're not trying to find a cure for cancer. We're not trying to solve the third world debt. This is not a serious business. These are all items that we don't actually need in our lives. They're items that we can afford to buy, or we can borrow money to buy them because they make our lives more fun.
Do you know why I think it happens? I think perhaps because you're so focused on the work you do, and you're very much, you know, you're not at the peak of your career yet. You're kind of...
Oh, I'm on the landing phase, mate.
No, you're not.
I can assure you.
But because of that, you're kind of insulated from how much people revere your opinion. And I keep coming back to that because I know that's what my viewers say all the time. And because of that, you've almost become the person to react against, particularly because you're the only one who tends to really talk about these kind of things. So it's almost part of the game now that you've reached that level where, you know, reactions to what you say is almost half expected. So I don't see it as surprising. I get why you don't like it.
No, it's not a question of not liking it.
And I get why it's kind of unprofessional.
It's that I like the discipline. So for me, the discipline of having a good heated debate about a car is that we stick to the car. Now, if and it's a fine line. Now, if someone fires up to me and goes, "You've got it wrong. You've called this wrong. You've got something. You're anti-AMG at the moment. You're at the other." That's fine. I'll deal with all that. But if someone starts going, "You're an old bloke. You're out of touch. Your career's shite, your TV show's shite." Well, I get a lot of that, and I get it from people. And if I get it from some faceless bloke on Instagram, that's fine. But if I get it who someone purports to work in my industry, nah, that's not. I'm not having that. And to be honest with you, I'm more than happy to go and sit in a darkened room with that person for a few minutes, because I think that is not on.
Yeah, no,
and I would never resort to it myself.
Yeah.
And I think. And what I will
say...
Let's
talk about the opinion, and we can debate
that.
Let's
stick to the car, because we can fall out over cars, that's fine. And I think
which, to be fair, is what we had. We were talking about the car.
I suppose it's just accuracy of words. I'm a journalist by trade. I really respect words and their meaning. And when people start to use them loosely and fire them... and when they start firing them round willy-nilly, I react to it. But I do think that it's very interesting what's happened around some of these opinions on these cars. I'm baffled by this sort of relentless positivity out there, because it's not all good. No. And because the car makers have been allowed, I think, partly through the positive press they've had for 10 years, to go down some really weird directions, because they think that's the way they should be doing it. Because no one's gone, "Why are you making 1,000 horsepower cars? What's the point?"
There's a hypercar every time you pick up stone these days, isn't there?
I know, but I love, one thing I do love is seeing people that come into the industry quite recently, like yourself, make a load of noise, get a load of audience, and even now you're becoming as cynical as me.
I know.
The cynicism, it comes in early.
The cynicism is always there, but the problem you have early on, and you'll understand this, Chris, is you have to be so careful to build those relationships. And it doesn't mean sucking up to someone. It means, let's say you don't think, like I didn't think the M8 steering was any good. I thought it was very wishy-washy and very numb. It's the way that you phrase it and the way that you impart that to your audience. So you're still being truthful and honest, but you're not pissing off the manufacturer too early in your career. So it's a really difficult...
I'll demonstrate it to you in a visual format. Okay? Give them a pat on the back and a punch in the bollocks at the same time, and they won't work out which one's which. But you knew that. Look, I'm a deeply flawed human being, as any of my friends will tell you. I'm chaotic, I'm disorganised, I have lots of things going on, I'm always getting things wrong, but I know a bit about cars. I've been testing cars for 20 years. I like to think I can drive to a standard that means that I can get into most cars. Okay, so when someone questions my ability to review a car, I'll go at them.
What about A45S? Because you weren't too enamoured with that either.
No, that was it. That's interesting, that one. Okay, be careful what I say here. So I got to Portimao.
Yeah.
I drove the thing on the circuit, and it just it was so contrived. It was so obvious that you could feel the calibration that they were trying to achieve. So I put the car into the corner, it would understeer. The middle of the corner, it would neutralise for about 3 car lengths.
Yeah.
And as I got on the gas, it would do this sort of fake oversteer where it would throw all this torque to the back. And I got out and said to everyone that was there, I said, is it just me, or is that one of the most contrived things I've ever driven? And everyone went, yeah, what's going on? And I don't know. So I went out on the road in the car that evening, and drove it, and the ride was choppy. And I have an issue with these hot hatches getting so expensive. I mean, you're my generation. This is an age thing. A hot hatch.
Oh no, I totally agree with you.
Should be affordable.
Yeah.
And it should be it should be a giant killing package at a giant killing price. The idea is that, you know, to go back to the original idea behind it, you used to have a Golf GTI in the late 70s that would be as fast as a BMW 3 Series, but half the money.
Yep.
But now we're in a situation where they're just as expensive as the cars they're supposed to be killing, so they're not giant killers. I then say it's not what I expected, and it's the first disappointing AMG I've driven in a long time. Okay, and I have a pop because I think that AMG is guilty, and I say this on the record. I think it's guilty of inviting people to review its cars that it thinks are going to say nice things about them.
Yeah,
okay?
we're talking really the influence.
Well, I think not just that, but I think they're shying away from scrutiny, and that is entirely full of common sense. Okay?
Yeah.
Why would you invite people that are going to say bad things about your product? If you could just have people say nice things, you would.
Yeah.
If I could just have an audience that said Top Gear was great, I would. I don't, by the way.
Yeah. Another thing we'll get on.
Yeah. But it's a dangerous game because I've been doing this long enough to know that when car makers isolate themselves from criticism, they lose advocacy. Without advocacy, you're struggling. You know, that is actually the beginning of the end. You can plot car brands, you can plot particular individual models that have started to fail when they're not open to genuine advocacy. And so I deliberately had a pot. I love dropping a bomb and watching everyone fucking start shouting and screaming at me.
Hence why we're sitting here today.
Yeah, that's all part of the fun of the fair.
Yeah.
But I meant it. Anyhow, fast forward 6 months, and I have a chat with someone from Mercedes-Benz in Germany.
Okay.
And he said, yeah, they were proper pissed off with that. I went, well, it's just me. It's just one opinion. Why does my, if it matters, then it matters. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I've put it out there.
Do you realise, kind of like, when you said that, there was like an earthquake for us.
Okay, fine.
For us, from our side, I'm not talking influencers, but car community, AMG fans, were like, holy shit, this car that we've been waiting for ages. Our kind of go-to guy has just said it's...
The accusation, first of all, it's just a car.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's just an inanimate object.
Yeah.
That doesn't alter people's lives. It's not your family member. People got to get over that.
Yeah.
This idea that people respond to the criticism of a car they don't even own.
Yeah.
But like I've personally insulted them or someone's personally insulted them, you've got to get over that. That's a bad thing for the world.
Yeah.
By all means, sit in your corner and fight your corner and have your tribe, but don't let it spill out into a level of communication that it just isn't worthy of the subject. We've all got to be aware of that. Anyhow, I was chatting to this bloke from Germany. He goes, when you're next in the UK, I said, I live there. He said, borrow an A45S, go down the road in it.
Yeah.
It might be a bit different to the one you drove.
Okay.
I went, okay. And I did. And do you know what? It was a bit different.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's not the first time that happens, though, to be fair.
No. So...
I mean, the C63S facelift that I drove on track versus the one that was eventually released was worlds apart. I mean, the one that was released had a completely different ECU. The way it handled itself was different. And this happens.
And the way that these cars can be calibrated now, it is just a software job. So, am I saying that Mercedes tweaked the A45S on the back of me giving it a kicking? No. Am I saying that they might have taken certain things on board? Potentially. Okay. I just think the car was set up to flatter a particular type of driving that's more inexpert than expert. That's probably reflective of the majority of the population, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah, yeah.
But I thought it was too contrived.
Yeah.
And I just felt that it had just gone too far. I was sitting in a car that probably had a list price of £65,000. It's a hatchback. It's like, what?
Well, this is the other topic.
It should be a 30 grand car. It's like, what are we doing here?
Like new M4, 80 grand, 85? Now, back in the day, and I say back in the day, it wasn't that long ago, when I bought my first C63, W204 saloon, fully kitted out, 52 grand it was.
Yeah.
And when I sold it 2 years later, I sold it for 45. Because I think the car was at the right price in the market.
Yeah.
It didn't shit itself.
Yeah.
Whereas today, when you buy a C63 for 75, 80 grand, as soon as it goes into the used market, it's coming back to the same price that it was back in 2008. Because there is a certain price for a car.
It's called a market for a reason, you know. It's the clue's in the word.
Absolutely. And a year ago, I rebought the original A45 because I enjoyed the fact that it was a quick enough hatchback for the road.
And because how much did you pay for it?
Well, for this one, I paid 25 grand, don't I?
There you go. You feel you've won?
Yeah.
You think now you've got a giant killer. In your mind, you get it and you think, I've got something that's outperforming what I paid for it. Yeah. That actually, of all the vehicle types, the hot hatch is the one that should do that.
Absolutely.
But let's come back to the price of these new cars. The fact is, the new M3 and M4 isn't going to sell in the volumes the last one did because the market's changed. The Tesla Model 3's pulled up over there. How many people that have an M car now are thinking, maybe I should? Yeah. There's a lot of pressure from the wife. There's a lot of pressure from the people that work for them. They're probably a company owner if they can afford a car like that. It's a good look.
Incentives and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. So you know, once they're selling fewer units, the price has to go up, and that's clearly what's happening. And they're positioning these cars like that. 80 grand for an M3 or M4.
It's madness.
With that face.
It should have been. That's the price for the M5 in my mind.
Yeah. Although you're now doing what I did.
Yeah.
Because you've been doing this long enough that you're saying, well, for me, this car was always at that price point. And it changes. Like for me, a 911 Turbo is an 80, 90 grand car. In my head, it still is. Yeah. It's now pretty much double that.
I just paid, well, when I got mine, 180, which is madness. Absolute madness.
You bought an 911 Turbo as well?
I have, Turbo S, yeah.
Jesus Christ, how many cars have you got?
I have to sell it for the Black Series because I can't afford to keep. I've got that, A45, C63 Black, which is a long term, as is this, and the Turbo S just now. I love the C63
Do you like the Turbo
Black Series. I love it. It's great. It's but this is the thing, you see. I'm a bit weird. I bought it because it will retain the value the best, and it won't shit itself in the short term.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, I had a long-term loaner from Robert Porsche for a good few months, and it was just a normal Carrera 4S. Even that I felt was too powerful. I would be happy with a normal Carrera. And I'm not just saying that to sound cool. Genuinely, for the road, I felt a normal Carrera or Carrera S rear-wheel drive is absolutely perfect. And the Turbo S is too fast. I can only enjoy it at long cross. Yeah, it looks great. I like the wing. I like the slightly wider stance. But apart from that, I'd be more than happy with a normal.
Here's a question for you that fascinates me, and I'm sure a lot of people in my sphere. How do you afford all these cars? It's amazing. I mean, I personally couldn't give a monkey's. Your business is your business.
Yeah.
But it is a remarkable thing that you emerge, you know, quite recently, and suddenly, amazing collection of cars. I love it. I think it's great. But flipping hell, people must be there going, how does he do it?
They do ask a lot. There's a lot of questions on YouTube. So as I told you in our brief chat before, I used to be an accountant. So I did have a backlog of money when I used to have a real job.
Yeah.
Now, YouTube does earn me money, and I do know how to monetize my audience.
Can you make money outside of YouTube as well now? Yeah.
I mean, we do a lot of partner deals with specific brands on YouTube that complement kind of what we think the viewer might.
And YouTube doesn't want a chunk of that?
No, so that all comes direct to us. So really, I mean, I don't buy them cash, Chris. I'm like everyone else. I'll finance.
Because
my Black Series is financed. That car is financed. A45. Altogether, they all probably cost me $2-3 grand a month, which is not a lot.
Yeah, and I'm the same. People have always asked me. There's some stuff I own, but you know, there's a bit of drip on that Porsche. Not much, but there is some. Otherwise, it would be unaffordable. I don't have 3 million quid to go and write checks for. It's not possible.
This is my one vice in life, and I spend, you know, kind of what I earn on it.
Yeah.
So I enjoy it. We have to have some vices, don't we?
Yeah, but it's interesting the level. I think the one thing we'll now sweep into the influencer sphere, which I find fascinating. The one thing I find really interesting is it seems to me the bedrock of the influencer movement, and I know you don't like the term because it's too broad brush, but I have to use it.
Go on.
Because there's people that refer to them as journalists, themselves as journalists, and I don't agree with that either. But
I do that actually, but I think I'm justified.
But this whole influencer sphere is predicated on total transparency. It's you live vicariously through my life.
Yeah.
It's a bit like the ultimate expression of having a column in a car magazine 20 years ago.
Yeah.
What you're saying is, this is my life, I present it to you, and I'm going to video every aspect of it, and I'm going to let you see the cars I buy and how I afford them and all this sort of stuff. But when people ask too many questions, they go, whoa.
This is my
private life.
Yeah.
Well, I think you've probably lost the right to have any privacy when you started hawking yourself about it in the first place. I learnt that the hard way, because I was probably the progenitor of this nonsense when I bought a Gallardo when I was 27 years old on Autocar magazine, and I did it purely to get attention, really.
Yeah. Well, we kind of call you the original influencer in between our own circle, not in the traditional sense, but in the sense that you kind of showed us the way, if that makes sense.
Well, I think what I tried to do was, and I remember when I did it, like you, I was trying to find a competitive advantage. This is all about the unfair advantage, whether it's you're doing what you're doing or what I'm doing. I'm trying to be better than the next person in my space.
Yeah.
Or not necessarily better, I'm trying to offer something that they don't offer. And the way around that for me wasn't to try and be a better writer than David Vivian or to be a better driver than Steve Sutcliffe, because at the time I wasn't. It just wasn't. But what I did think I could do was to create a life around cars and then just let people view it.
Yeah.
So rather than go out and look for stories, make yourself the story and let people come and watch it.
Absolutely.
All right? Or in those days, read about it. But it did allow me, because it was just through magazines and the occasional video back then, it did allow me the chance to go, whoa, these are the boundaries.
Yeah.
And I've got many more walls now than anyone in your world has. I mean, no one's ever seen where I live, or I'd never be a picture of one of my children or any of that stuff, because I just wouldn't do it. So I do view what's going on with a sense of exasperation. And I think what's disappointing for me is that I can't say you generally, but this movement of people that are your age that are making really clever content with not massive resources, is that everyone's clearly really clever. But so many people fall back on two things that I think is so lazy. One, the launch event calendar.
Yes. Yeah,
it's just lazy.
Yeah.
It's you know what? It's exactly what journalists were doing 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You can either go out and do something interesting, brave, and memorable, or go on a car launch.
Yeah.
And the car launch is easy, it's cheap, you can go and do it. So you always fall back. It's the default position. That's what's disappointing. So much of this content that's coming out is just let's go on a freaking car launch. Yeah. God almighty. And the other
thing that the great evil of that is the car launches and the newest thing, much like the old tabloids, that will always bring in the interest and the views and the attention.
But does it really? Everyone's doing it. You go on the...
That is true, actually. You do have to differentiate now.
Yeah, you go...
Otherwise, every thumbnail is the same.
The 765 LT launch,
it's
just that everyone's got a slightly boring video going around a part of Silverstone that no one wants to drive around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. I mean, talk about competitive advantage.
Yeah.
If I'd been on that launch, I'd have gone, how on earth am I going to make this look different?
Yeah.
I'm stuck with everyone else doing the same thing. It's really tricky. So the second point is that people fell into this trap of buying cars to be interesting.
Yes.
Now
I've done that.
I've done it as well.
Yeah.
I've like you. I've been in a showroom and thought, oh, that make good story. But then where does it end? I mean, these people with fleets of like 10 supercars that all do the same freaking job.
Yeah.
I just sit there perplexed and think, well, what's the message? Is the message I'm really rich? Is the message I'm really into cars? I'm not sure. It doesn't look like a broad car love to me. It just looks like very fixed, high value cars.
It's almost run like a business now for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's fine. But I still think it doesn't have a long-term strategy.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, everyone has to buy a Chiron, don't they? At the end of you have to end up getting.
That's right. What is the logical end?
Yeah.
How do you one up yourself? Yeah.
So those are the two things that I find perplexing. And I suppose the other thing, the thorny issue for me, is I don't think anyone's got any teeth.
Yeah.
I think the A45S was disappointing.
Were you a little bit more, just to close that one off, were you a little bit more impressed with the
Yeah, I was. And I thought it was better.
Yeah.
But I still...
Is it something, say, used market 2 years from now and it's sitting at 38 grand?
I mean, I'd buy one.
Yeah.
But is it a 65 grand car? No. It's a hatchback.
Yeah.
And also I've got an M2 Comp, which is 45.
How's that running?
It's good. It's got some different suspension on it, some bits and bobs on it, but 45, 50 grand.
Yeah.
That munches an A45 as a driving experience.
Absolutely, it does.
Okay, maybe not in the middle of December when it's -2.
Yeah.
So the other thing is this sense of advocacy of having some teeth, of telling it as it is. What's really interesting for someone old spitter like me is I'm just seeing it. I'm just seeing some people who've always said things are good actually putting their head above the parapet and going, ooh, I'm going to say that's not quite as good as I thought it was. And it's really good to see, because we need it. We need a generation of people that go, that's shit.
Absolutely.
Not everything's great, And the 765 LT, it's not as good as it should be.
So the reason I said influencer is quite a broad brush is the barriers to entry to your industry. I'm going to call it your industry as kind of the guys who began it all and, the traditional way. The barriers to entry to that are so low now. All you need is someone with this, doing this, and you're in you're in.
Yeah,
Basically,
you've got a bigger audience than Autocar because you can find that audience so quickly.
Yeah.
It makes me sad, but it's the truth.
And the inherent problem with that is there are then so many different types of these influencers that each one is kind of like a market in itself. And that's why when you have them invited to the launches, even though they're all influencers, they're all serving various different purposes. So if I'm invited, say, to a Merc launch, they know that they're going to get a technical review with engines and past cars and a bit of driving, etc. Versus, say, they invite someone like Shmi, they'll get maybe a story about if he wants to buy the car. And that is such a wide band of difference between me and him, or me and someone else of that ilk. And this is the problem that I face, is that going to a new manufacturer, I often get asked, why do you only do AMG and M and Porsche? Because it takes time to build relationships and independent.
Yeah.
So when I go to a new manufacturer, it's a matter of saying, look, I know I come under the influencer sphere, but I'm trying to be a journalist because I'm doing my research, I'm writing scripts, I'm doing storyboards, and I'm not talking about me and my life. So do you mind just putting me in a slightly different niche and just considering it? So this is the problem that someone like me faces. And there's a few others who, Joe Achilles is another one, again, inspired by yourself, as many of us were.
I bet your head off on Instagram. And you were being impish as well, you little swine. But I love what you do. But you were being impish. If you're impish, you're going to get your head bitten off. But you do great work, boss.
He does. So there's those of us who are in that area struggle a bit because we try to be honest with things, but then those bits of content don't particularly do that well. And because we're spending the same amount of time doing it, let's say a car launch of a brand new car, naturally you incline towards the brand new car because maybe you can be a little bit clever with it or say something as you might,
Have you reached the stage now, all of that, by the way, I totally understand. When we were doing the YouTube thing, we weren't Top Gear, we weren't a TV show, but we weren't doing a first drive for a car magazine. So we used to go there and say, well, can we get we need a bit more access because we were trying to make a 20-minute video as opposed to take 2 still shots and have a long lunch.
This is the problem that we always have, don't we, Jamie?
So honestly, different day, same shit.
Verbatim.
And I totally sympathise. I've watched you guys and the way you make films on launches, people like you, and I totally sympathise because I did it for ages. Neil and I used to have pitch battles with these people. And we're going to go.
Do you miss it? I mean,
massively.
Top Gear
And we're going to start doing it again.
Really?
Yeah, we're probably going to reboot my old channel.
Cannot wait for that.
And go back to doing some of the old stuff because when you make big budget TV, you really miss it. You need both in your life. Big budget TV is great, but it's inertia ridden and it's slow, and it's not what I grew up doing. And it's not me.
And as a viewer, you actually come across a bit differently.
I have to, yeah.
Because you have to.
Yeah.
It's part of the format, right?
It's bloody TV. Whereas, I want to sit there and just talk for 20 minutes about a differential. Of course I do. But it's part of the rich tapestry, isn't it? I was given the chance to do something, and I had to give it a go. But to come back to this idea of where do I fit? I want this access because I do this work. If you're a car maker, it's impossible because you can't have a menu system for everyone that does different things. And no one's ever going to be happy.
No.
So I do feel sorry for them. But equally, I look at what's going on now and I think you're inviting people because they're either your mates,
There's a lot of shit out there.
or they're going to say something nice about the car.
Yeah.
Well, that's a slippery slope in my experience. But maybe it links back to what we were saying earlier. They've realised that they've only got 5-10 years left of making this stuff. So who gives a shit?
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. Are they going to sell fewer cars because some miserable old bastard like me says, oh, the handling's not so good on the limit? Probably not. I don't know.
But you know what? The influence that you have for the customer, like people like you, Henry Catchpole, Jethro, etc., is massive, though, even today. Even with the inclusion of all of us influencers.
That might be because the age of the buyer as well.
I don't think so, Chris. I mean, Jamie, how old are you? You're 25 and...
Looking good for it, boss.
You're the same as me, that you would look at someone like Chris and base your buying decisions off him rather than someone like me.
I'd take all opinions but I'd take them with a pinch of salt because I would rather try it myself.
Yeah, he's giving you the answer you don't want.
He has.
But no, I get. I think
I prefer Chris over you. Sorry.
No, but I think I get it. But I still believe that people like me never actually influence a buying opinion. We just help someone get over the line.
Yeah.
That's really, or we might sow a kernel in their mind that they then might take into a bigger buying decision at some point. So I'd never think we have that much. This word influence keeps coming up. But I totally sympathise with this idea that you're trying to be rigorous, you're trying to set yourself apart, but then you get there and you're treated like the bloke. Quite often, you're sitting next to the bloke who's got the same, or woman who's got the same access as you. They don't even want to be there. They're sitting there going, yeah, I've been sent here by the whatever, some newspaper you've never heard of, and you think, I've begged to be here, and I'm going to do a cracking video. I'm going to put my back into this. You don't even give a shit,
mate. It's how many launches? I keep ringing. You should sit here. Can you come in?
But
the amount of launches we've been on, Chris. Same thing. That they come up to us and they say, right, you've got a slot between 12 and 1, and then we've got lunch between 3 and 4. And I'm like,
but you're serving your apprenticeship, sadly. And it sounds awfully patronising. We've all been through it.
Yeah.
And you will, you'll get to the point where you've got a bit more leverage and you've got a bit more footprint, and then suddenly, and obviously your AMG relationship is brilliant, so you're already there with them. It will happen, but it is bloody frustrating because actually, it limits what you can do. It limits the quality of the product you put out. But
because we've said so many times, look, give us the car if you're starting the event at 9, give us the car at 6. We'll do something different. You can have the car back, but it's always
quite often it's the Germans don't like anything that's off the radar.
So I had a couple of questions that I thought were topical for today in our market. First is new M3 and M4.
Ooh.
What are your thoughts? We're all desperate to know.
It's an emotional roller coaster for me. So they, first of all, they tease an estate car, and we go, oh God!
Touring, yes,
I'm like
finally.
running down to Dick Lovett to order one, and then someone goes,
Have you? Or are you thinking about it?
no, I've not, because of that grille.
Really?
So then someone goes, it's going to have the M4 grille. I go, they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that. But oh no, they've done that. It's like that wonderful story about the original TR7 when an Italian designer was walking down. Do you have heard that story?
No, I haven't.
It's a Geneva Motor Show.
Go on.
Some Italian designer's walking down. He's seen the TR7. He walks down it, looks at it, and then he walks around the other side and he goes, oh no, they've done it to this side as well. Right? And I just couldn't believe they've done it. And I'm a Bangle advocate. I think that sometimes...
it really rubbed me the wrong way originally, the Bangle. When I was a kid, I was like, no, I just hate it. But now...
It's clever.
It's
and also, what was clever commercially was they didn't look good unless they had a N Sport kit. So everyone had to buy... Everyone spent another $3,000 on their cars.
Yeah.
So he made them billions.
You remember when you used to have to spend $3,500 to get either AMG kit or the M Sport kit on your...
Clever.
Yeah.
So, and that was Bangle. So, but this isn't clever. This is just a piece of, a single piece of styling that's just there because they think they've got to do something with the grills, and they've got to. And the Chinese market loves these big open mouths, so it's really for them.
Yeah.
So I don't like it, but I think someone will fix it very quickly.
They will. There's a lot of companies on it. Me personally, I actually did like it.
Did you?
And the reason for that was I was never too. I love the M2 as an M car. I think it's the best one. I had the M4 CS for a while. I thought it's not that much better than that is, on the road. So it didn't interest me, and neither did the styling. It just didn't speak to me. And my favourite concept from M ever was the CSL Homage.
Yeah. Beautiful. And that had perfect vertical kidneys. That's what a modern vertical
That's what it
kidney
should
be.
have been. But what I liked about this is it reminded me enough of that, and I'm hoping that it's a first stepping stone.
Have you ordered one?
I want to, but the price is killing me, Chris. It really is.
We got a Black Series as well, mate. I mean,
I'm dead.
I think next year might be a bit sticky as well. No, I just want to finish on that.
Yeah, go on.
Okay, this is where I've got to be grown up. It's an M car that's an estate that's small. It's going to be sold in the UK. I should be all over it like a rash. I'm gutted. They've got this confused spec thing, and it's all a bit complicated. And there's we can't get a manual.
We can't get a manual in the UK,
which
can
is
we?
a real shame.
Yeah.
So for me, I'll stick with my M2 Comp, I think. But thank you for making it BMW. But why?
I know.
I mean, you could fix it. You could fix the styling of that car in 10 minutes on your laptop.
I did do a render of it, actually.
Yeah, I bet it looks better.
I'll show that up here. For you, maybe. For me, because I'm an AMG guy and I'm getting the GT Black Series, which is a ridiculous looking car from the front end. It kind of works for me, because maybe I want to stand out a little bit at my age, I don't know. But yeah, it kind of works for me.
Okay.
But the one thing that I love that BMW M did, and I feel they're a little bit more in tune with their customer base, is you can get rear wheel drive, you can get X-Drive, you can get manual, you can get auto. And you can get touring.
Just not in the UK.
You've got such a wide range of options, which brings you on to the next topic that I wanted to just touch base with you on, is apparently the next C63 will be a 4-cylinder hybrid. And AMG's customer base
see you fainting.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I bought that, Chris, because I had the facelift for a while and it was a lot quieter, didn't have the same... I didn't care about the digital dash, etc. I don't care. I like analog, like watches. So I rebought this after having had the new one. And when I heard that the next one is a 4-cylinder, that was it. This is a keeper for life. And I just can't get my head around how can you take your main product and dilute it into something that is just not attractive to someone who's had. I've had 11 C63s.
Because
I'm not interested.
Because they're beholden to legislation, and that's the way things are going. It's sad. You know, you are, and I am existing in an industry that is going through not a profound change, but
We're dinosaurs of different periods, I feel.
A complete alteration in the way that it can operate, okay? This is not dissimilar to when, you know, the horse and cart became the horseless carriage. You know, we're talking about that level of seismic alteration in the way we do things. So we have to accept it.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen is that these car companies are going to try very hard, and they have to offer us things that they think we will buy because we'll accept the fact there is no alternative. That's the phrase, there's no alternative. If there is no 8-cylinder alternative, will you buy the 4-cylinder? And I think some of us will give it a go.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us will do what you're doing, which is to buy the last one and hang on to it. But there's going to come a point where
You can't drive that anymore.
you can't drive that anymore. So it's sad. It makes me very, very sad. But I feel great sympathy for the car companies, and I sort of want them to win, because at least they're trying, and they're not just giving us an EV. They're not just backing off and going, all you can have is an EV.
Whereas on the other side, from what I was reading, what Porsche were talking about the future regulations, they were saying that small engines producing too much power will eventually be outlawed by the EU.
Yeah.
So they're going to actually go back to larger cylinder engines. So I don't know.
But
It's a minefield.
everyone seems to have it. It's a bit like the F1 regulations. Everyone seems to interpret them differently.
Differently,
don't they?
that's right. Yeah.
But fundamentally, do I have an interest in a 4-cylinder C63? Not at all.
No.
Of course I don't. I don't.
We have to be convinced we're at that stage now, and like you said, I think we're reaching this precipice now where even the influencers included, we're all going to have to look at the car industry in a very different way, because so many things are going to be changing. It's not, we used to have just incremental increases in power, didn't we, and performance. Now you're going into whole new territory.
Yeah.
Like me reviewing the Taycan a little while ago was a completely different experience, because you had to look at things from zero.
Yeah.
And you've driven that as well, haven't you?
Yeah. I mean, you have to frame it within the reference of the road cars you've driven, but it performs in a way that no internal combustion engine car can. I mean, the performance of the Turbo S is uncomfortable. It's too fast for the road, isn't it? Yeah. You're actually out of sync with other road users. It's a bit like being on a fast bike, almost worse.
Yeah.
That every time you accelerate, you have to sort of back off again.
Yes.
And
when you're starting, you're stopping.
There's no smooth progress in the thing. So, yeah, these are really interesting times for all of us. And maybe when you view the ultimate, and I have to use the word guardedly, threat that there is now to all the cars that we love, we shouldn't be sitting here saying, oh, the next one's going to be 4 cylinders. We should just be thankful there's going to be one at all.
Yeah,
you know, we're almost at that point now.
But do you think that EVs are kind of is that the eventuality? Is it all said and
I had
done?
a very interesting interview with a guy from the National Grid a few weeks ago, which I think will go up on Top Gear's website at some point. It was really interesting. A really intelligent, broad-minded chap. He didn't just turn up with his electric car stick to hit me with, which is a very easy target,
Yes,
you can imagine.
These days especially.
He arrived in a Lotus Elise Series 1 with a piston head sticker on the back of it, and I thought, here's a guy I can talk to.
Yeah.
But he's also a huge EV advocate. And he just said, look, this is the basic statistic that you need to know, the basic fact that you need to absorb, and it's this. The increase in electric car ownership and usage over the years and the demand it's going to place on the grid can be met by the increase in investment in renewables in the UK. So there's going to be enough offshore wind farms to basically give all of these electric cars the go-go juice they need.
Okay.
Now, once I'd absorbed that, it was a bit of a wake-up call for me. At that point, my core argument, which is infrastructure, not vehicles, slightly dissipates.
Yes.
Because there is going to be enough electricity. How they deliver that to the vehicles, I don't know. Not everyone's got a driveway. Not everyone wants to go and sit on a forecourt and charge up for an hour. How that bit happens, I don't know.
It's difficult because you have tower blocks of flats and people parking anywhere they can.
Fundamentally, there will be enough electricity, because we always hear that on Christmas Day, during the ad break for Coronation Street, when everyone goes to make a cup of coffee, that's when the National Grid reaches 99.8% of capacity, don't we? And if basically Aunt Bessie makes 3 more cups of tea, we're all in the shit and everyone's going to collapse. Yeah. Apparently, that's not the case anymore. Okay. And this is the guy from the National Grid who's not making it up. So that was interesting. The electric future, does it excite me? There's bits of it that I love. I mean, the great irony of electric cars is that people like me have been crapping on about trying to make smooth, quiet powertrains, V12s that are silent.
If
And
nothing,
then-
they are quiet.
They are, but then they give us a silent car and we go, oh, it's got no noise, it's got no personality.
Taycan's noise was brilliant, I thought.
I thought it was
Did
a
you
really...
enjoy the electric sound?
Yeah, I thought they did a really good job of giving us something that was slightly from Star Wars. It felt like a
Very
speeder. They'd really worked on it.
Yeah.
So I want to excuse the pun, I want a hybrid future. I'm more than happily, my vehicle that takes me to the airport and back, my vehicle that takes me around Bristol, I'd have it electric.
Yeah.
Absolutely fine. But I want to have a touring in the garage, and I want to be told by the government that I'm allowed to use it for 1,000 miles a year, and I want to choose how I do those miles, and I don't care if the fuel's 10 quid a litre. That's my passion, and I don't want them to take my passion away. So I'm happy to go as electric as you want. Do I think it's the ultimate solution for everything? Not necessarily. Hydrogen still, I think, is fascinating.
Yeah, these synthetic fuels. I keep wondering,
Synthetic fuels. Porsche have invested heavily in that recently, yeah.
The other thing that comes up with me for hybrids is I don't mind a four-cylinder. I don't, because the original A45, the reason I bought it, because it sounds so great. They've got a great exhaust system. It's a bit farty, yes, but it excites you enough day to day. The other thing, alongside emissions, that always comes along is noise pollution regulation.
Yeah.
So do we have to have that? What can we at least have one thing? Can we have at least noisy cars from small cylinder engines, and then take care of the environment with emissions, etc.? Is the whole noise thing a bit of a...
I think the noise thing got out of control. The car makers took the mickey with these valved exhausts, probably exhausts 10 years ago or so, when they found the loophole. They could do a bypass valve, so they passed the startup test, and the valve would open and it'd make too much noise, and they got too loud.
Yeah.
My car is too loud. It's got an aftermarket exhaust on it, but it's too loud for me, and I'm having another box put in it. So I like car noise, but I don't like doing it if it interferes with other people's lives. If I go through a village and I think I've made someone else's day worse because of the noise of my car, I'm not happy.
Agreed.
I'm honest with you. So I'm on and off the button quite a lot. I had a hybrid Panamera for a bit, and I like the fact that I could start it in electric mode, leave town quietly, and then make noise. I thought that's a really good solution. But we've gone too far back the other way. The WLTP C63 is too flat sounding. The 911 Speedster has got that engine with the valves on it, and it really kills it. It actually kills the throttle response as well. So, but again, are we stuck looking at a macro problem that ignores the much bigger problem? If we're facing the extinction of this type of vehicle, should we be sitting here going, "Oh, they're not loud enough for me"?
I feel like someone's grabbed me from here and they're dragging me across the field.
I know. But look. All I'd say is, buy something now that excites you, even if it's not new. Hang on to it for as long as you can, and eventually you won't be able to drive it. I mean, that's what we're facing. Get out there, enjoy it while you can.
Can I cancel that Black Series order, please?
No, I think you'll be all right. Well, apparently it sounds so shite, it's not a problem.
I have a lot of work to do on that. So, Chris, before I let you go, I actually have a gift for you. Two gifts, in fact. One is a very simple one. It's an AMG face mask.
Oh, yes, boss!
So you will enjoy wearing that, no doubt. And the second, this is quite special. It has to be AMG again because of who I am, but this is a burnout bag. Have you ever heard of these?
Oh, someone sent me a note about this. Has it actually been driven over?
There's these guys called Destroy vs Beauty. They've got an official partnership with AMG. They get this material, they chuck it under the rear wheel of a C63, they do a burnout, and then they stitch a bag with it, which is brilliant. And I thought, for you, being the Drift King and whatnot...
I've wrecked a few tyres with AMGs in my time, I have to say. I've wrecked a few tyres.
So this is for you. A huge thank you for taking the time to come out and having a lovely debate.
Look, one thing to add to what we talked about, because I've sat here basically and been rude about something that you're really looking forward to owning, and that's a weird thing to do, because I don't want to do that.
No, but you weren't rude. It's like I said to you. It was questions that I had in my own head.
It's a debate. But the great thing about a motor car, it's about you and that vehicle. It's your choice. Absolutely. It's what you decide to do. It's a very personal thing, the motor car, and I think that's a great aspect of the broader subject that we all love. Yeah. It's a personal thing, and you can justify it, and you can justify it to yourself. That's all you need to do. Don't justify it to me or the people there. Justify it to yourself, and that's why you see people driving along a road in a Renault Wind. And they're happy.
Absolutely. That's why we all don't drive the same thing.
The rest of the world's going, why are you driving a Renault Wind? Are you mad? But that man or woman is there, and they're happy.
They're very happy.
And that's all it comes down to.
Chris, thank you so much. Really honoured. It'd be great to have you back at some point, and maybe we can revisit the whole Black Series thing.
But well done what you're doing.
No, thank you.
Some of it's mind-bending. And of course, I am an old bastard who just doesn't get the way the new world works.
It's been an absolute honour, and take care of yourself.
Cheers,
and I'll
boss.
see you very soon, guys.
Nice to
Thank
meet
you
you.
so much for watching this. It's been, I hope you've really enjoyed it. I've had an amazing time here with Chris. Hopefully we can get him back on the channel one day. And now we're both going to depart in our lovely cars that we intend to keep for a very long time. So if you've enjoyed this, please do like, subscribe, do all that usual stuff. I'll see you again next time.